welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with the keywords that made headlines this week. As housing prices continue to climb across the Seoul metropolitan area, President Lee Jae-myung is inviting public suggestions on the issue ahead of a new package of government measures. South Korea's Minimum Wage Commission has agreed on next year's minimum wage following lengthy negotiations and multiple revised proposals. Driven by a semiconductor-fueled economic rebound, the Korean government has raised its growth target to 3% for this year. With housing prices in Seoul continuing to climb, the government is stepping up efforts to craft new real estate measures. President Lee Jae-myung is now seeking input from both experts and the public before finalizing the policy package. Our Plus correspondent Song Hee-jin reports.
As the Korean government prepares new measures to rein in soaring housing prices in the capital area, President Lee Jae-myung says it's time to listen.
의견을 최대한 많이 들어본다. 합리적인 의견으로.
Lee's remarks came as government ministries kicked off a 3-day series of policy forums on Tuesday to gather ideas. Experts and members of the public will discuss 3 key areas: housing supply, finance and loans, and real estate taxation. Describing housing as Korea's biggest challenge, President Lee called on his cabinet to identify the key issues for productive discussions.
워낙 복잡하고 또 예민하고 또 아주 사소해 보이는 것도 엄청난 영향을 미치는 중요 의제라서 근데 얘기하자면 끝이 없는데 또 어쨌든 중요한 거거든요. 이런 걸 뽑아야 얘기가 돼요. 안 그러면
One of the most contentious topics is whether owners of higher value homes should pay higher property taxes. President Lee even asked viewers watching the cabinet meeting live for their opinions.
초고가에 대해서는 좀 차별적으로 부담시키는 게 좋겠다. 에 동의하시면 1번, 그거 아니다 2번 한번 눌러주시면 좋겠습니다.
The result?
대부분의 댓글이
네.
1번입니다.
비중이 얼마나 돼요?
일반 한 90%대
90% 지금 초고가 주택은 실거주 1주택이라도 좀 강화하자는 점에 대해서는 대체적으로 동감하는 것 같네요.
The discussions come as apartment prices in Seoul have risen for 74 consecutive weeks as of the first week of July. The ideas raised during this week's ministry-led discussions will feed into a final meeting chaired by President Lee next week before the government unveils its new housing measures as early as this month. Song Hee-jin, 아리랑뉴스.
President Lee Jae-myung on Wednesday was briefed by ministries in charge of economic affairs. He called for the need to build a system to ensure that investment can flow into the capital market away from real estate speculation. Yoon Jae-min reports.
The president, having begun his second year in office, spoke at a policy briefing on Wednesday.
이제 앞으로 또 남아있는 기간, 이제 3년 11개월쯤 남았나요? 남아있는 기간이 이제 더 중요하죠.
President Lee Jae-myung stressed the need for measures to ensure that investment can shift away from real estate speculation and flow into the capital market. As part of such efforts, South Korea continues pushing its bid to be placed in the Morgan Stanley Capital International's Developed Markets Index, which would help stabilize fluctuations in the stock market.
근데 이게 MSCI 지수 편입 같은 게 이제 수요가 좀 국제적으로 이제 안정화되는 데 도움이 되잖아요. 이거는 왜 잘 안 되고 있을까요?
The biggest obstacle is the demand to allow free 24-hour trading of the Korean won and the free opening of accounts. Opening the market all at once without preparation could have adverse effects on the foreign exchange market.
Koo added that the finance authorities will come up with a safety net by no later than early next year. Wednesday's policy briefing was joined by a panel of ordinary citizens, for the first time intended to represent opinions from all walks of life.
As for the 24-hour trading system, staff in the dealing room must provide support. But I hear there are objections. How do you respond to that? And what could be a solution?
세계적인 선도 국가로 우리가 발돋움하게 될 텐데 그러면 사실은 우리는 밤낮이 있지만 사실은 지구 반대편에는 한참 일하는 시간이어서 우리는 주간에만 8시간 딱 9 to 5 하겠다. 이게 불가능한 시대가 옵니다. 그러니까 거기에 대응도 해야 되고 거기에 또 설득도 해야 되고 또 충분한 보상이나 뭐 대책도 있어야 되겠죠.
When it comes to the recent volatility triggered by single-stock leveraged exchange-traded funds tied to Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, the president instructed his officials to swiftly come up with complementary measures. On top of that, the finance authorities announced their plan to expand the National Growth Fund to 200 trillion won, worth over $134 billion to bolster investments in new technologies, including aerospace. Yoon Jung-min, 아리랑뉴스.
This week, Korea's ruling and opposition parties failed once more to break a deadlock over control of parliamentary committees more than a month since the second half of the Assembly's four-year term began. At the same time, a fast-tracked overhaul of prosecutors' investigative powers is opening new fault lines both between the parties and within the ruling camp itself. And today, our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun joins us in the studio to tell us more. Welcome, Hae-ryun.
It's good to be here, Sejin.
Hae-ryun, so can you tell us what happened during the talks on committee leadership this week?
So another round of negotiations broke down on Tuesday afternoon, Sujin. Ruling Democratic Party floor leader Han Byung-do and his People Power Party counterpart Chung Jong-sik met under National Assembly Speaker Cho Jong-sik, but neither side moved. The talks stumbled on how to divide the Assembly's remaining 7 standing committee chairs. Speaker Cho, who has already delayed a resolution once this month, again pressed both parties to finish forming committees before Constitution Day this Friday. Chung left the meeting visibly frustrated, accusing the Democratic Party of pressuring the opposition rather than negotiating in good faith.
The DP should unilaterally amend the National Assembly Act so the largest party formally monopolizes all 18 chairs and take them that way. Stop pretending negotiations exist while using intimidation and pointless delay instead.
Han, for his part, maintains the DP has shown patience and the opposition hasn't reciprocated, pointing to its refusal to submit a committee member list. The DP already selected 11 of the 18 chairs unilaterally on June 30th, including the powerful Legislation and Judiciary Committee, prompting the PPP's continuing boycott of Assembly business.
And you just mentioned the Legislation and Judiciary Committee, so what's happening there right now?
And well, this is the next major front, and even without the opposition present, the DP has kept the Legislation and Judiciary Committee running. Its subcommittee began reviewing a bill that would abolish prosecutors' so-called Supplementary Investigation Authority, the power that lets a prosecutor step back into a police-led case and investigate further if gaps remain. The party argues removing this authority is the final piece of a broader prosecutorial reform launched last year, which already abolished the prosecution service's old structure and created separate agencies for indictment and major crime investigations.
Completing prosecutorial reform means finishing a criminal justice system that serves the public. Now, revising the Criminal Procedure Act to fully abolish Supplementary Investigation Authority will complete the final piece of prosecutorial reform.
But committee Democrats are also now weighing a significant addition to that bill, a new right to raise an objection for crime victims whose cases are under investigation, as well as strengthening victims' existing right to challenge police decisions not to refer a case for prosecution. The idea is to soften the impact of stripping prosecutors of their backstop authority by giving victims a more direct way to push back if an investigation stalls and to build their own case. The PPP still disagrees with the underlying bill and plans to introduce its own legislation preserving prosecutors' supplementary authority, warning that removing it concentrates too much power within the police.
I see. What's happening within the ruling party then?
So the DP is also gearing up for its own leadership contest. Former party leader Chung Cheong-rae declared his candidacy on Monday, completing a 5-way race for the August 17th convention alongside former Prime Minister Kim Min-seok and lawmakers Song Young-gil and Ko Min-jung, among others. That race has already produced friction over how the vote itself would be run, but the party Supreme Council and Party Affairs Committee both signed off on Wednesday on a preferential voting system for the leadership election, ending a factional disagreement that had drawn objections from lawmakers close to candidate Chung Chung-rae. With that settled, the party has also locked in the rest of its convention rules. Candidates for party leader and Supreme Council seats registered on Thursday and Friday, and a preliminary primary starting on the 21st will narrow the field to 3 contenders for party leader and 8 for the Supreme Council. It's worth watching closely, as the party running the government, whoever emerges from this race, will shape how the DP wield its majority once committee formation is settled, including the pace of the very reform agenda we've been addressing tonight.
Thank you so much for your report today, Hae-ryun.
Thank you for having me.
South Korea has marked its 3rd annual North Korean-born Citizens Day with a renewed focus on inclusion and social integration. Government officials said members of the North Korean-born community gathered to celebrate their contribution while discussing the challenges that remain. Kim Do-yeon tells us more.
The song Longing for Kumgangsan Mountain opened Tuesday's main ceremony for South Korea's 3rd annual North Korean-born Citizens Day. More than 1,000 North Korean-born citizens and government officials gathered at Kintex in Gyeonggi-do province to mark the occasion. President Lee Jae-myung also delivered a message pledging the administration's support.
Adapting to an unfamiliar society and starting anew is never easy. You must have endured immense difficulties learning new skills, meeting new people, and carving out your own place.
Under the theme, Embracing Our Home, Bridging Peace, participants had the chance to connect with fellow North Korean-born citizens in South Korea who shared the unique experience of building a new life. From college students to public service workers, attendees shared their resettlement journeys. They highlighted both their successes and the ongoing hardships of facing social prejudice in a new community.
My job involves handling civil complaints, but because my hometown is Musan in Hamgyongdo province, my voice tone is quite high. Callers have often mistaken me for a voice fisher.
To date, South Korea has recorded a cumulative total of 34,600 North Koreans who have resettled in the South. The Ministry of Unification vowed to improve the practical foundations for long-term social integration, including the changing of the term from North Korean defectors to North Korean-born citizens.
This year, for the first time, we mark this day using the term North Korean-born citizens. A name defines identity, and its history is complex. The term defector harbors discrimination and exclusion, instantly bringing back painful memories of the past.
Interactive booths were set up across the venue, providing customized information on local community services and educational programs. With Tuesday designating the official day for North Korean-born citizens, this entire week is marked as a period of national celebration. Until the end of the week, local governments across the country will host cultural events and forum discussions. The nationwide campaign aims to foster better public understanding and build an inclusive environment for the North Korean-born community. Kim Do-yeon, 아리랑뉴스.
With South Korea's stock market reaching new highs, interest in investing is spreading across generations. And that growing enthusiasm is driving more people to enroll in stock academies as they seek to build confidence before entering the market. Our Kyun Jung takes us to the scene.
It's Saturday morning here in Yeouido, the heart of Seoul's financial market. Office workers are gone for the weekend, but this academy is just getting ready to welcome students. Class kicks off with an analysis of one of last week's biggest market stories, SK hynix's ADR debut. Every class here is about stocks. For around $330 a month, students receive lessons from basic chart reading to company analysis and overall market conditions. Enrollment has risen alongside this year's stock market rally.
A year ago, we'd get just a few calls a day. Now it's over 30 and enrollment has more than doubled. Recent calls have been from investors who bought Samsung Electronics or SK hynix near their highs.
Students range from college students in their 20s to retirees in their 70s. Including those taking the course online, the academy now has several hundred students.
I never thought stock investing was something I should do, so I didn't even have a brokerage account. But after a lot of recommendations, I decided to give it a try by learning the basics.
Some are shifting how they manage their wealth a little later in life.
Most of my investments used to be in real estate, but I think stocks make more sense now. I hope steady investing will help me enjoy a comfortable retirement.
After first reaching the 5,000-point mark in late January, it took just 5 months for the benchmark Kospi to climb another 4,000 points to reach 9,000. Rising chip demand and AI optimism lifted the country's chip giants, drawing new retail investors into the market. That trend was reflected in new brokerage account openings across every age group. Accounts for children and teenagers were up more than 600% year-on-year, while the figure for people aged 60 and above rose more than 250%. Real estate has long dominated wealth building in Korea, but that formula is beginning to change, with more money flowing into financial assets.
Some money has shifted from real estate into financial assets since last year's rally. More investors are now taking a longer-term view of Korean stocks instead of treating them as short-term trades.
Experts, however, say it's too early to call it a structural shift. Whether individuals continue investing despite market uncertainty will determine if the trend truly takes hold. Kim Junong, 아리랑뉴스.
South Korea's government has raised its economic growth forecast for this year, citing strong semiconductor exports and robust corporate investment. It also unveiled a new long-term vision aimed at boosting growth, trade, and national income. Our Baek Ju-hee has more.
Unveiling its economic strategy for the second half of the year on Tuesday, the government has significantly upgraded the country's growth outlook. The real GDP growth forecast for this year has been revised upwards to 3%, a substantial leap from its initial 2% projection. If achieved, this will mark the highest growth rate since 2021. Meanwhile, nominal GDP growth, which includes inflation, is projected to reach 12.3%, marking the highest level in 3 decades. The adjustment comes as rising chip exports lead to faster corporate investment across the country. Accordingly, the government officially announced its new 345 vision to achieve a fundamental turnaround for the Korean economy.
올해가 잠재 성장률 3%, 세계 무역 4강, 국민소득 5만 불이라는 대체 불과 대한민국으로 도약하는 원년으로 기억될 수 있게 힘을 모아주시길 부탁드립니다.
To achieve this, Korea is accelerating its 3 major mega projects centered on semiconductors and AI. On top of that, new super innovation projects such as sensors and next-generation secondary batteries will be newly designated for aggressive development. With strong tax revenues, the government will provide massive funding to secure these advanced technologies. Also, the government has identified young people and talent development as its core investment targets. This year's net employment gains are expected to slow to just 1,500,000, down about 40,000 from last year. This comes amid persistent global risks and a sluggish recovery in the domestic construction sector. In response, the government has pledged to train 200,000 young specialists in high-tech fields and create 200,000 new job opportunities. To help young people build long-term wealth, the government will launch a new youth-type individual savings account, which will offer tax-deductible benefits and tax exemptions on investment returns. Officials also promise to quickly address regional gaps and the economic divide between industries. To counter the risk of a triple high inflation, high interest rates, and high exchange rates, the government will deploy full-scale stabilization measures, including large-scale food discounts and flexible energy price controls. Baek Ju-hee, 아리랑뉴스.
South Korea has finalized its minimum wage for next year after weeks of negotiations. The decision came only after marathon talks and a final vote by the Minimum Wage Commission. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
The Minimum Wage Commission on Tuesday set South Korea's legal minimum wage for next year at 10,700 won, or about $7.20 per hour. The new rate marks a 3.7% increase from this year's minimum wage of 10,321. The decision came after lengthy negotiations involving representatives from labor, business, and the public. During Tuesday's meeting, the two sides submitted a total of 13 revised proposals in an effort to reach a compromise. Labor representatives initially demanded a minimum wage of 12,000 won an hour, arguing that workers need greater support to keep up with rising living costs. Business groups, meanwhile, called for the wage to remain unchanged at this year's level, citing concerns over rising labor costs and the burden on small businesses.
The minimum wage is a uniform standard, so the decision should be based on the realities facing small businesses and vulnerable sectors that are already struggling to keep up with the current wage.
In the final round of negotiations, Labor lowered its proposal to 10,731, while business representatives offered 10,701. With the two sides unable to bridge the remaining 31 gap, the Commission put the issue to a vote and ultimately adopted the business side's proposal. Under the law, the Commission was required to finalize next year's minimum wage by mid-July, allowing the Labor Minister to officially announce the new rate by August 5th. The 2026 minimum wage had increased 2.9% from the previous year. 이승재, 아리랑뉴스.
South Korea's ambitions to lead the future of aviation were on display this week at the 2026 Korea Drone and UAM Expo. Our Lee Ju-yeon takes a closer look at the cutting-edge drone and urban air mobility technologies showcased there.
The answer to heavy traffic may soon lie in the skies. A domestically developed urban air mobility aircraft has been unveiled to the public ahead of a flight demonstration on Wednesday. Urban air mobility, or UAM, is a new form of transportation that uses highly automated electric aircraft to carry passengers and cargo over relatively short distances. According to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, UAM can cut travel times in congested downtown Seoul by 76%. Instead of getting stuck into morning traffic, imagine hopping into this UAM vehicle and soaring above the city. The government aims to commercialize UAM by 2028, with testing of the technology already underway. Korea Drone and UAM Expo 2026 opened Wednesday, showcasing advanced technologies and a new vision for the future of aviation. The UAM Pavilion offers a range of hands-on programs for visitors. They can experience what it might be like to travel by UAM in 2028. Using a flight simulator, visitors can take a virtual journey over Jeju Island and see its major landmarks from the air.
Flying over downtown Jeju felt incredibly realistic. It was almost like being on an actual flight.
The future of drones is also on full display. In the corporate pavilion, Korean Air showcased its Loyal Wingman drone, an unmanned military aircraft that works as a bodyguard, protecting fighter jets flown by humans. Although still under development, the final goal is to equip this drone with AI pilot technologies.
Our ultimate goal is to secure a leading position in the unmanned aerial vehicle market, both at home and abroad.
Meanwhile, Incheon Metropolitan City has introduced drones boosting local safety and disaster response. Starting this year, the city has been utilizing them to inspect vacant houses for safety and prevent heatwave damage, with plans to expand the initiative in the future. Efforts are accelerating to bring this next-generation air mobility technologies into everyday life. Held under the theme Reshaping Daily Life, Designing the Future, Korea Drone and UAM Expo 2026 runs through Friday. Lee Ju-yeon, 아리랑뉴스.
South Korea's summer heat has remained relentless this week. Our Park Jin-an spoke with people about how they're coping when heatwave warnings were in effect across most of the country on Monday.
In Seoul, stepping outside feels like walking into an oven. Korea is grappling with intense heat, with heatwave warnings and advisories issued across most parts of the country. On Monday, daytime highs in Seoul soared to 33 degrees Celsius. But what makes the heat truly unbearable is the humidity. The The Korea Meteorological Administration explains that the extreme heat is being driven by two powerful high-pressure systems over the Korean peninsula, combined with warm, humid southerly winds. Because of the high humidity, the heat index, which is how hot it actually feels, is pushed up by 1 to 2 degrees, hovering around 33 to 36 degrees Celsius nationwide.
It feels like I can't breathe the moment I step outside. It's so hot that I try to stay indoors as much as possible, and I just keep drinking lots of water.
We live in the desert in Mexico, so it's very dry, but also really, really hot. And here it's just really hot and really humid, so we're like sweating a lot.
The southern city of Daegu saw temperatures skyrocket to 37 degrees. And the heat does not fade even after the sun goes down, leading to widespread tropical nights across the nation. However, help is on the way. A low-pressure system moving in will bring monsoon showers nationwide, starting from Jeju Island. With most areas in Seoul under heatwave warnings, the scorching hot weather may continue until it rains, with showers expected on Tuesday. Park Junan, 아리랑뉴스.
And that brings us to the end of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.